We're 1 month away from Oktoberfest, but a lot of visitors tend to fall for expensive scams and don't realize that going to Oktoberfest doesn't actually have to break the bank. So as a Munich native, let me fill you in on the secrets. Hello, servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Feli. I'm originally from Munich, Germany, born and raised. I spent 9 years of my life in Cincinnati, Ohio, but last year I actually moved back home to Munich, which is where 4 weeks from now, the Oktoberfest will start. For those of you who don't know, Oktoberfest is the largest Volksfest in the world. Volksfest basically translates to folk festival. I also sometimes say beer festival in English because of the typical beer tents. The festival goes on for 16 days straight and attracts more than 6 million visitors every year. Many of them are locals like myself, but many also travel there from around the world for a once-in-a-lifetime experience. But if you're attending the fest for the very first time and don't have a local showing you the ropes, you might end up having a pretty disappointing experience. And worst case, you might end up losing a lot of money just because you didn't know any better. I've seen people pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for reservations. I've seen people get stressed because they were stuck in the crowds and waiting in lines for hours. I've seen people spend way too much for hotels just to be right at the festival grounds. So I'm going to be your local guide today and let you know how to have fun at Oktoberfest without breaking the bank. We'll cover how to get into the tents and find a seat, what to wear, and even more importantly, what not to wear, accommodation and transportation, and how to save money on food and rides. And after you watch this video, be sure to also check out my other Oktoberfest videos, like this Oktoberfest guide, because today I'm mostly focusing on money, or this one where I busted some classic Oktoberfest myths for you, or this one where I told you which songs you need to know for Oktoberfest, and this one where we documented my American husband's very first time at Oktoberfest 3 years ago. Let's start with the big question of how do you even get into Oktoberfest and how do you get a reservation? Oktoberfest at its core is like a big state fair. There are rides and stands everywhere, lots of food, and of course these huge beer tents, which really are solid 2-story beer halls that are being set up for weeks before the festival even starts. And the good news is entering the festival is completely free. You don't need a ticket, there's no cover charge, you just walk right onto the festival grounds through one of the many entrances. However, what you should keep in mind is that since 2016, they don't allow any large bags on the festival grounds anymore, so you can't bring anything that's larger than 20 by 15 by 10 centimeters or that has a volume of more than 3 liters. But in case you do have a bigger bag, they do also offer luggage storage outside of the entrances for a small fee. Us locals usually only bring a small purse like this, or many people only bring what they have in their pockets. Also, be sure to check out the official Oktoberfest website before you go to check which items are banned at the festival. One thing you definitely should bring though is cash. Most of Oktoberfest is cash only, and that means euros. They won't accept American dollars, so be sure to either get some euros from your local bank at home before you leave for your trip, or withdraw some from an ATM, ideally before you get to the festival grounds, because the ATMs there can get pretty long lines, and most of those will also charge you a hefty fee. The best places to withdraw money from are local bank ATMs, such as Sparkasse, Deutsche Bank, Postbank, VR Bank, Commerzbank, and so on, because those will charge you the lowest fees. And the golden rule is that anytime that an ATM or a card reading machine asks you if you want to pay in US dollars or euros, always select the local currency, so euros in this case. If you can, try to avoid third-party ATMs like Euronet because those will charge you pretty high fees. And unfortunately, a lot of the ATMs you'll find at Oktoberfest itself are Euronet, but some of the banks have ATMs set up there as well. So if you really do need cash after you get there, you should be able to find one. It just might be a little bit of a hassle. In addition to cash, I would also make sure to bring an ID, but not your passport, just something that has your name on it, your phone, a little power bank for your phone, and especially on days when it's raining or a little colder outside, bringing a plastic bag, such as a trash bag, comes in super handy because that way you can put your jacket or umbrella in there while you're at the beer tent, and you can shove it or tie it underneath the table to avoid that your belongings get stepped on or fly all over. But how do you even get into the tents, and how do you get a table? A lot of people seem to believe that you somehow need to book a table for hundreds of euros up front in order to even be allowed inside the tents. Or they try to make a reservation for two and are confused why that's not possible. But in reality, you don't need any of that. Technically, the tents are just like a big restaurant, or even better, a big cafeteria where you can just walk in and sit at any free seat as long as they're not reserved, and then the waiter will come to you and take your order. Now you're probably thinking, wait, so you can make a reservation? Then why wouldn't I do that to ensure that I have a seat? Yep, you absolutely can do that, but there are a few things you should know before you do. Your standard Oktoberfest reservation will always be for a full table, so one of these Biertische, which typically can seat about 10 people, 8 if you'd like to have some more space. And these reservations usually cost anywhere from 300 to 700 euros for the whole table. For that money, you'll receive a certain amount of drink and food vouchers that you can then use inside the tent. So in a way, you're paying upfront for what you may have spent inside the tent anyway. This is just a way for the tents to ensure that they get a minimum amount of spending per table. Usually they charge you for at least 1 liter of beer plus half a roasted chicken per person. In some tents, it's also 2 liters of beer per person, so that's why some reservations are more expensive than others. And then you can usually order all kinds of extras like table decor and charcuterie boards and stuff like that. Technically, the vouchers can be used for other items as well, even if you don't want to drink beer or don't want to eat chicken. It'll say how much they're worth on the voucher, but you can only use them at that particular tent. So if you actually have a group of 8 or 10 people and you're okay splitting those costs, then getting a reservation is definitely a good idea. You can also check Facebook groups like these to see if anyone's still looking for extra people for their table reservation. But beware of scammers, because there are so many sketchy third-party platforms and Facebook groups where people are selling Oktoberfest reservations with a huge markup, like here for 3,000 or even crazier, 10,000 euros for 2 tables. And many people simply don't know any better, so they end up spending way too much money just to have a seat. And sometimes people even pay thousands of euros without ever receiving a valid reservation. So if you do want to get a reservation at the regular price, be sure to go straight to the websites of the beer tents. They're each run by a different owner, so they all have different prices and conditions and their own websites. Each tent also has a different vibe, different live bands, and a different clientele, by the way. You can find a pretty good overview of the different tents and links to the official booking portals on the official Oktoberfest website, which I will link down below for you guys. And there's another website with great information about the tents, reservations, and everything else called Oktoberfest-guide.com. The most popular reservations usually get booked months in advance, so if you're planning for next year, I would recommend keeping an eye on the booking platforms at the end of this year, early next year. Each of the tents opens up their booking platform at a different time, but the Saturday night slots usually get booked right away, so that's something to keep in mind. However, even now, 1 month before Oktoberfest starts, you can still get midday reservations at a lot of the tents, and starting on August 27th, you can check the official reservation marketplace, where people are allowed to sell their reservations that they don't need anymore at the regular price. The Oktoberfest Guide website also has a newsletter you can sign up for that will keep you updated if the tents open up any last-minute reservation slots. Now, having a reservation means that for the time frame of that reservation, which there's usually a midday time slot from noon till around 4:30 or 5, and then an evening time slot from then until closing, which is at 10:30 or 11 p.m. in most tents. Just a couple tents stay open until 1 a.m. And for that time slot, you have a table guaranteed, and it also means that you can get into the tent even when it's closed. And that's probably the biggest reason as to why people are willing to pay so much money for the reservations, especially for Friday and Saturday evening slots, because once the tents have reached full capacity, they will close their doors and then they'll only let people in every now and then, like at a nightclub. So huge lines, or rather crowds, will form outside the tents, and you never know whether waiting in line will be worth it or not. But if you have a reservation, you'll get wristbands or sometimes little tickets for the amount of people you booked for, and you guys can just go ahead to the reservation entrance, which is usually one of the side or back doors, and walk right in. And on a Saturday evening, that is definitely a power move. However, as a local, let me tell you, there are plenty of other ways to attend Oktoberfest and still get a seat. First up, if you don't have a reservation, try to avoid the most crowded times, such as Friday night and Saturday and Sunday altogether. If you go during the week, your chances of just walking into a tent and finding a seat are significantly higher. And of course, the earlier you go, the higher your chances. Some people even go early in the morning and then hold on to their table for the entire day. The big tents open at 10 a.m. during the week and at 9 a.m. during the weekends. Again, check out the websites I linked down below for a full tent overview. And this is a great overview of how crowded it usually gets at what times of the week. However, even if you go at a time that's not very crowded, you're probably not gonna just walk in and find a bunch of empty tables. Most tables will already have some people sitting at them, but the thing about beer tables is that they're meant to be shared. If your group doesn't fill up the whole table, other people will join you. And that's honestly the beauty of folk festivals like these. You get to meet so many people, whether they're locals or from all over the world, and have so many great conversations. So what you want to do is just walk through the aisles, and whenever you see a table that's not full yet, ask if they still have room. In German, you could say, "Ist hier noch frei?" or "Habt ihr noch Platz?" But English usually works just fine as well. It also helps to specifically ask for the number of seats you need. Do you have room for two? Granted, you might need to have a little bit of patience, and of course, it might feel a little weird at first to approach strangers like that and ask to join them. So I would suggest to have the most extroverted person in your group take over this job. Sometimes it can even help telling people where you're from. They might find it interesting and want to talk to you. Now, if you're with a bigger group and you can't find a table where all of you can sit together, a good strategy is to split up at first. Have a few people sit at the one table, a few people at another table, and wait. People come and go all the time. So maybe the people at your table will leave and you can get the rest of your group, or maybe you'll eventually see a new table open up. If you see people at a table who already look really drunk or sleepy, or generally just look like they might not stay for much longer, that's always a good bet. Maybe sit with them, and then once they leave, the table is all yours. Also, when people get way too drunk to a point where they're a liability and or aren't ordering anything anymore, waiters even sometimes kick them out. Which brings me to another thing you can try. Ask the waiters. They usually know if any of their tables have open seats or if there's a group that's gonna leave soon. Just don't take it personally if the waiter gives you a short answer or ignores you. They are extremely busy and stressed out, but if you catch them in a good moment, they can be really helpful too. Also, waiters, of course, wanna make money. So first of all, Americans are often popular guests for them because they tend to tip well, so that could be an advantage. And then telling them that you just got there and plan on ordering lots of drinks and food might help as well. Then, of course, let's not forget about beer gardens. Most of the tents have a huge outdoor seating area, and none of those tables are reserved. So if you can't find a seat inside, it might be easier in the beer garden. Since there's no live music out there, they tend to be a little bit more relaxed. So for some of you, this might be the better option anyway. You can still order the same drinks and food. Oftentimes you can hear the music from inside, and then you can keep an eye on the crowds inside, and maybe you'll be able to move at some point. Last but not least, there's also the Oude-Wiesen, the old Oktoberfest, which is a section of Oktoberfest that's a lot more traditional. You do have to pay a small entrance fee to get in, but then you'll be in an area full of historic rides, attractions, and more traditional beer tents that tend to be a lot calmer than the big party tents, and it's usually easier to find a seat there. And at Hofbräu tent, which is one of the most touristy tents at Oktoberfest, by the way, you can also find standing tables where it's a lot easier to find a spot as well. Okay, now you've made it into the tent, you have a seat, you're enjoying your beer and are dancing on the bench, but what are you wearing? I'm sure most of you have seen this and this before, right? These are called Lederhosen, literally leather pants, or suede pants to be more precise. The dress is called a Dirndl, and these are traditional Bavarian outfits, Tracht in German. If you're interested in the history of these Bavarian Trachten, be sure to check out this video because there's a lot of surprising history connected to these. But fact is, people here in southern Germany, specifically in Bavaria, which is the state that Munich is located in, as well as in parts of Austria, still wear them to this day. Not necessarily as an everyday outfit, but for festive occasions such as church, baptisms, weddings sometimes, and folk festivals such as Oktoberfest. But of course, wearing a Tracht isn't a requirement. They'll still let you in even if you're wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and many locals do that too. That's totally fine. But I will say most people, including myself, enjoy getting out their Tracht for this to feel all dressed up and festive. And many of the visitors want to fit in and feel included as well, which is totally understandable. So if you do want to get yourself a pair of Lederhosen or a Dirndl, I think that's awesome. In fact, I sometimes get asked if locals find it disrespectful when visitors put on our traditional clothing, but most of us think it's great. As long as it's real Tracht, I should say. The biggest no-no at Oktoberfest is when you show up in cheap Halloween costumes off of Amazon that look like this, or these printed t-shirts. In that case, we'd rather you show up in jeans. But if you do it right, you're more than welcome to wear Bavarian Tracht. Now, you can buy Tracht here in Bavaria, of course, but if you're coming in during Oktoberfest time, you won't find a whole lot of selection left at the stores, and they also come with a hefty price tag. Especially Lederhosen can cost anywhere from 300 euros to over 1,000, depending on the style and material you're getting. But the good news is that there's a great store called Bavaria Trachten, where you can get your Lederhosen, your Dirndl, and your whole outfit within the US on a budget. And you can get 10% off your entire order with my code FELI. I've been partnering with Bavaria Trachten for 4 years now, and I can tell you that you truly get authentic outfits there. Ben only has Lederhosen by Bavaria Trachten, and he always gets so many compliments from the locals. We've also been told that he looks more German than I do, which, yeah, I see it. He has a pair of the antique wax brown ones, which is probably your best guess if you're going for that classic Oktoberfest look. He prefers the short ones, and I'd say that those are generally more in style right now. But of course, you also have the option to go for a knee-bound length if you prefer that. Now, Ben's favorite pairs are probably the royal black ones. That's by far the pair he's worn the most, and the white ones, which he just added to the collection. Oh, and they do also offer some more high-end goat Lederhosen, which is considered a more premium material, so if that's what you're looking for, you can get that as well. To complete the full outfit, they also have the traditional button-up shirts for you, whether you prefer the white one like Ben, or maybe you want to go for plaid. And what's brand new this year is that they added vests to their collection, which we love because it always makes the outfit look even more put together with a vest. And if it gets a little cold, it's nice to have an extra layer on too. This is the blue vest, but they also have it in gray. And one thing that Ben was even more excited about is that they added charivaris to their collection. They're these decorative chains with different charms that men can add to the front of their Lederhosen. Ben's been wanting one for years now, and he finally got it. He's so excited. Then, of course, you want to get some socks, or what I prefer, the calf warmers, and a pair of traditional shoes that go with the outfit. They also have a hat if you want one, and belts, because even though your Lederhosen will come with the traditional suspenders, a lot of people actually prefer wearing them as just regular shorts, and then the belt comes in very handy. By the way, if you're unsure how to style your Tracht, what's allowed, what your different options are, I have a full video on how to wear Dirndls and Lederhosen, so be sure to check that out for more details. Now, a couple years ago, Bavaria Trachten also added Dirndls to their selection, like this green one that I got, and this year they actually added something that's been really trendy in Trachten fashion these last few years, and that is velvet Dirndls. I particularly love the dark blue one, but they also have this burgundy red color, and let me tell you, you're gonna fit right in with the Munich Oktoberfest scene with these. Another trend that's been really big for women is headbands, so you can get a matching headband, which I love, and of course they all come with built-in pockets, which is quintessential if you ask me. And your Dirndl will already come with a standard blouse, but if you prefer the lace look or like the high-cut version of the blouse, Bavaria Trachten added a few more options for you this year. I personally love the high-cut blouses like this one, but of course they also have some to show some more cleavage. They also have a necklace to round off your outfit and socks, which I don't usually wear with my dirndl, but you definitely could, especially if it gets cold. They also have women's lederhosen, by the way, which you'll also see a lot at Oktoberfest, and they have kids outfits too. Bavaria Trachten ships all over the US, and the best thing is that with my code FELI, you will get 10% off your entire order. Plus, they also currently have a deal going on where you get a free pair of socks or calf warmers on orders of over $199 and another 10% off on orders over $299, which is all stackable with my discount. Just make sure to add the code at checkout and enjoy your traditional Bavarian outfits. Another budget option would be to rent an outfit. Bavaria Outfitters offers this, for example. You can book your pickup day and size up front and then pick your outfit in person at one of their locations here in Munich. Another big expense for an Oktoberfest visit is usually the accommodation. Millions of people come to Oktoberfest from out of town and from other countries, which means that for 2 weeks every year, Munich turns into a place of mass tourism, and hotels book out months in advance with prices going through the roof. A lot of Munich locals even decide to stay with friends or their parents for those 2 weeks or go on vacation during that time, just so they can rent out their apartment to Oktoberfest tourists and make some extra money. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any magical tips to find cheap accommodations, but fact is, the earlier you book, the better. Be sure to check hotel websites, booking platforms, Airbnb, Home2Go, and so on. And be prepared that rates are about 4 times higher during Oktoberfest time than they are right before or right after. So it might even be worth looking into staying at a different city in Germany or even in Austria and then taking the train for a day trip to Oktoberfest. Either way, I'd also recommend looking into hostels on hostelworld.com, for example, and join Facebook groups such as this one. One of the most affordable options out there is camping. Now, of course, that depends on whether you're comfortable with that, and it also depends on the weather. Some years it's sunny and 70+ degrees during Oktoberfest, and other years it's like 50 degrees and raining the whole time. You never know. But there are several campsites all over Munich, and there's even a dedicated Oktoberfest campsite called Wiesencamp in the eastern part of Munich, where you can rent a tent or rent a tiny home. Location-wise, you should know that Oktoberfest takes place at Theresienwiese, which translates to Therese's Meadow. It's located just west of the city center, and of course, most visitors want to stay as close to there as possible, but I would argue that as long as you have a good public transit connection to Theresienwiese, you'll be fine. Which brings me to the next point, transportation. A lot of tourists simply don't know any better and end up paying hundreds of euros for Ubers and taxis to get to Oktoberfest and back home, while most of us locals take public transportation, which is going to be a lot cheaper too. So this is also what I would check for when booking an accommodation. On Google Maps, put in the connection from your accommodation to Theresienwiese and then select the little train symbol and it'll show you all of the different ways to get there. The most convenient way is probably taking the subway straight to the stop Theresienwiese, which is literally located on the festival grounds. Subway lines U4 and U5 stop there. Some people also like to get off one stop before or after, depending on which direction you're coming from, at Schwanthaler Höhe and then walk from there to avoid the crowds at the Theresienwiese stop. Alternatively, you could use the subway lines U3 or U6 and get off at a stop called Goetheplatz or at Poccistraße and then walk a few minutes from there, which usually just means follow the masses. If you're taking the S-Bahn instead of the subway, the S-Bahn is the suburban train that goes above ground for the most part. You'll want to get off at Hackerbrücke and then it's about a 10-minute walk from there, but again, just follow the masses. In the evenings, the police usually plays music from their speakers for everyone heading back to the S-Bahn, so it's actually a fun vibe.
Every time we touch, I get this feeling. Every time we kiss,
Welcome to Hackerbrücke.
There are also numerous bus stops and streetcar stops around the festival area, so no matter where you're staying, you should always find a way to get there. For tickets, you can either buy them at those little vending machines at the platforms, or you can also get tickets in the MVV app or the Deutsche Bahn app. I would probably recommend getting a Streifenkarte, a stripe ticket for 18,70 euros, or for 10,20 euros if you're under 21 years old. And then you'll use 2 stripes per one-way trip for an adult, 1 stripe for kids or if it's a short trip of up to 4 stops only. The physical Stripe ticket will need to be validated at these little stamp machines before you board the subway, but if you get it in the app, it's already validated. Of course, there are also single trip tickets, day tickets, group tickets, and tickets for several days. So depending on how long you're staying and how many people you're with, you can decide which one makes the most sense for you. Or you could also get the Deutschland ticket, the Germany ticket, which costs 63 euros per person per calendar month and covers all local public transportation in all German cities and even regional trains between cities. This one you can only buy within the app, and it's a subscription, so if you end up getting that, be sure to cancel it in time. One thing you'll notice, especially when you leave Oktoberfest at night, is all of the rickshaw drivers with their party lights and music playing. They often approach you and offer to bring you home or to a nearby bar or a club, and those are definitely a lot of fun, but they also get really pricey, so just a heads up to clarify the price before you get in. Other than that, you can also rent these city bikes for pretty cheap, or an e-scooter, of course, but please make sure that you only ride those sober. You're not allowed to ride those when you're under the influence, and even when you are sober, please be careful, especially with the e-scooters, because people get in pretty bad accidents with these all the time. And in case you were thinking about driving, I would try to avoid that at all costs because there is no Oktoberfest parking lot or anything like that, and street parking as well as parking garages are a very hot and pricey commodity. Another aspect of your Oktoberfest visit that can get pretty pricey is food and drinks. Because compared to what things usually cost in Munich, Oktoberfest has pretty steep prices, and unfortunately they go up every year. This year, the beer price is at 14.80 euros to 15.90 euros per liter, so per big beer stein, depending on the tent. And since it's common to add a tip of about 10%, most people pay a few euros extra. I usually do 17 or 18 euros per beer, which is crazy given that when I was like 17, we'd pay 10 bucks per beer, including the tip. You can also get pretty good non-alcoholic beer, by the way, as well as soda and other non-alcoholic drinks, of course. Now, what many people don't know is that the tents are basically like a huge restaurant with table service and really good Bavarian cuisine. However, the sit-down meals are definitely on the pricier side, so if you want to save some money in regards to food, I would recommend sticking with simple options such as a pretzel and a side of potato salad. Or here at the Hacker tent, you'll also find a side of dumplings, fried potatoes, spätzle, red cabbage, and a side salad, all for under 10 bucks, plus some soups as well as a couple of Bavarian white sausages. Most tents also offer lunch deals. At this one, you can get a Bavarian classic such as a pork knuckle or a half-roasted chicken with a side for under 20 bucks. One of the craziest deals at Oktoberfest is at one of the smaller tents, the Glöcklewirt, because on weekends before noon, they sell white sausages for 99 cents a piece. Then if you have kids, you could also save a good amount of money by going to Oktoberfest on a Tuesday because kids and families get discounts for both foods and rides on that day. But your cheapest option will always be the food outside from the stands. There are dozens of food stands all over the festival grounds where you can get savory and sweet snacks, often for under 10 bucks. Some of the most popular options are bratwurst in a bun. Often it's these gigantic half-meter long bratwursts. Ben loves his steak sandwiches, for example. You can find Käsespätzle, Kaiserschmarrn, which is similar to pancakes, crepes, langosch, or grilled fish, just to name a few options. At a stand called Hellberg, which is located between the Augustiner and the Bräurosel tent, you can even get a fish sandwich or a meatball sandwich for under 5 bucks. One of the most popular Oktoberfest treats is roasted almonds, and there's a few stands where you can still get 200 grams of roasted almonds for under 5 euros. One of these stands is called Bavarian Sweets, and it's located by the ride Topspin. Also, if you want to save money on drinks, the Münchner Stubentent, which is one of the smaller tents, has been doing a buy one get one free deal on beer these last few years, but only if you order food there as well. And other than that, just be sure to look out for the water fountains on the festival grounds to get some free water, because the tents and stands don't actually provide free water, unfortunately. That is not common in Germany and Europe in general, but at least they did add these free water fountains a few years ago. Last but not least, let's talk about the rides and attractions attractions at Oktoberfest. From roller coasters to fun houses and shooting stands, you can find all kinds of entertainment at Oktoberfest. However, since there's no cover charge for the festival, you'll have to pay separately for each attraction, and it's gotten pretty pricey over the years, so it can add up pretty quickly. My favorite roller coaster, Olympia Looping, costs 14 euros per person. I remember when I was a kid, it was like 5 euros per person. But the good news is that there are still some cheaper options as well. At the historic part of Oktoberfest, Oidewiesen, all of the rides only cost €1.50, for example, and a lot of these fun houses, as well as smaller rides like these, only cost 5 to 7 euros. Teufelsrad costs $5 to get in, which is an Oktoberfest classic. These big swings cost under $5, and again, on Tuesdays before 7 p.m., children and family get discounts at most rides as well. If you guys have any other tips to add for an Oktoberfest visit that doesn't break the bank, please share them in the comments below. Again, be sure to check out my other Oktoberfest videos for more helpful tips that aren't just related to money. And if this video was helpful to you, I would appreciate a super thanks donation via the button down below or via Ko-fi, PayPal, or Patreon. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel and activate the notifications because there may or may not be a few more Oktoberfest videos coming. So if you want to see what it's really like there, stay tuned. You can also follow me on my other platforms. And with that, I hope you'll have an amazing time at Oktoberfest. And who knows, maybe I'll see you there. Prost and tschüss!